Good evening from Yami B TV. Sorry it's a bit late coming this evening. I had to travel another 2 hours back home. Had a nice day in London with my nephew Quincy and everybody. And yeah, I've just had my Sunday dinner. And thanks and sending loads of love to you all. Um, Terence Green, Paul, everybody, great stuff. Good feedback as well. I'm glad to know you're all right, Street Life. Worried a bit there. Hope you're all right there as well, Marina, my light. And yep, so we're going to follow on from this morning and about the uniforms and the costumes and my development from a young boy into being, a shaky, vulnerable, small, young boy who was scared and fearful and just wanted to be fitting in anywhere that he thought, with the only way that he thought, to be honest, was the best way to get it, and that was to please my peers. For many of you young ones up and coming around the country and think it's a good life to get into, these are the reasons why you must stay away. Because from being very small and innocent and scared, really, I developed into a hardened criminal who didn't care whether he lived or died. For the cause of whatever I was feeling, whatever I was thinking, I knew that I was a lost soul, and basically, the image that I got taught was the one that I thought I was. So what do we do after those early stages? Because after getting nicked in that Boy Scout uniform and got British Rail, I got bail, and then a couple of weeks later, I got caught in a house for the first time by a victim who strangled me with the telephone wires. And being small at that time, I couldn't really fight back that way. I didn't have no weapons on me, thankfully. And, I ended up in custody with 4 years. And that was a time when I went to Aylesbury, And anyway, during that time, I always thought, I never wanted to be in a position where I wouldn't be physically strong enough to get out of situations. And that's where I started to develop my physical strength. And it's fair to say, everybody will tell you for a 5'8" man, I was seriously strong. Unlimited resources in there as well. I used to sit on the floor with 200 kilo, without no wraps or nothing. 230, 240 deadlift, all at the body weight of 11 and a half, 12 stone. Not a big bencher, but I had a big chest anyway. By this time, after that Aylesbury sentence, I physically started to become supreme, if you like. So that gave me confidence, renewed confidence, because once you get that coating of armor, that safety net where it puts people off testing you, kind of thing, because they think they might come unstuck with you, that you won't be an easy pushover. This was the reason for me to start developing muscles and serious strength, because I was fearful. There's no other way of putting it. But anyway, we know that the Boy Scout uniform was a con to make victims, potential victims, and people walking around places thinking that in a Boy Scout uniform you're there for the right reasons, for knocking on doors, when really my reasons are more sinister, so we know what that meant. But as the years went by, I became a hardened criminal after that. And like I said to you, I started thinking I was the absolute bee's knees at crime. Even though it's fair to say I wasn't the greatest thief, I did have in that life lucky touches, if you like, of because of the places I was frequenting. Because you grow up from the way that you're taught in West London, and you're thinking that in these places, the rich, the famous, whatever way you want to put it, you stand a better chance of success. So I come off the island of my second stint, which would have been about the early 90s, the middle 90s, right? My cousin, not my real one, but she grew me as a small boy. Rest in peace, Rosamond Spencer. I was living at her house at that time in the spare room, and it's fair to say that I was bang at it, which means I was out there every single day committing crime. We know from previous interviews that I didn't have no real value of money and the sense of it. I didn't think by getting a few grand I could put it into something else to make money. I wasn't that really interested, to be honest. I used to give my stuff away, wear these little bits of thing to make people think that I was somebody, but never lasted long because my crime sprees, sadly, were very sporadic and all at once. You know, you can't do it that way anyway. There's no way to do it. You always get caught at some stage. As clever as you think you are, and you last a bit longer, you know, it will always catch up with you. We've worked that out. Many of those prisoners will tell you that it creeps up on you when you least expect it. But I was looking for it. I wasn't expecting to stay out long, so I was on the warpath. So for a minute, I'm going to switch back into Yami B mode because this is the only way that I can tell the story of being that way, if you get what I mean. So I'm at my cousin Rosamond's and I'm lying there at night. I'd gone through a few £100 that day and I was thinking, where was I going to go tomorrow? I'm thinking Berkeley Street. Because during those days, the penthouse apartments, Belgravia, Knightsbridge, Kensington, Chelsea, you know, all those places where the chance of getting big valuables were a higher success rate if you wanted to go in that way. But it's also more, very much more risky because the chances of getting caught are much higher than, you know, what they used to say, shitting on your own doorstep, which would mean stealing off the poor and that kind of thing. Not saying to you that stealing off the rich is a better idea, but I'm saying to you that's how I was taught. So I left Rosamond's in the morning because I used to walk into these penthouse apartments and places, but they still had tight security in the early days. You know, now it'd be even more. You'd be real trouble. But in the 80s, when you walk past those blocks, walk into those apartments, penthouses, there's always security porters with walkie-talkies because of how rich, you know, the people that are living in those places are. The security has to be really high. So I used to walk past most, and walk in, like I'd walk in front of another guy or me on my own, where I would get through without being stopped. Sometimes you get stopped when you walk past. Now, a lot of people get stopped, but for some reason I'd done that. I don't know whether it was my look, the colour, or whatever, but I knew that I fitted in kind of thing. So I was using what I thought I looked like to get into those places. So we knew from the Boy Scout uniform. Now we're more advanced in later life. And now I'm putting on the Saudi Arabian gown, which is like a camise. The reason for this was because I wanted to stand a chance of fitting in to this building I was going. Very difficult place. Nothing to glamorize in it. You know, it's not clever thinking, it's just brave, risky, and the chances are quite high that you're going to get caught, especially the way that I used to do things. I reached the front entrance, which is Berkeley Street. I don't mind talking about it because I've been nicked already for it. So I've got the Arab gown on, sadly. No disrespect to the Arabians, but that's my past, that's my convictions, and that's some of my convictions, not all. So it's not like I'm targeting that particular. I'm not going to try and say anything. Why should I? You know what? I felt to belittle that little. You see how you tried. But anyway, so I'm outside the building. There's three porters at the desk, right? So the two pillars there, a pillar to the side, pillar to there. It's four sides to the building. So I'm walking through. I look left. I look right. The porters all stare to look at me, and I'm waiting. Where are you going, sir? Nobody talked. Nobody talked, so I carried on walking. Breathed a sigh of relief. I'm thinking, I'm in. Yes, that's what I was thinking. Got to the right, sat on the stairs. Even them days there were cameras in the lift, but not on the staircase. So I sat up on the stairs because there was about two apartments on each floor. So I've gone up three floors, I'm sitting on the stairs and I'm waiting sadistically, callously, calculating, cunning, waiting to hear somebody go and then screw them over, sadly, right? So I started to get a little bit restless after 20 minutes. There wasn't no movement in the building. So I started to walk up the stairs because sometimes I used to sit on the stairs thinking the porters were going to come and say, "Sir, what are you doing in the building?" kind of thing. So by that time, I wouldn't have done nothing. Colin again. And they could say to me, "Leave the building, sir," blah, blah, blah. So not a lot of times that happened, but occasionally it did. So I thought I was smart. I was swaggering. My chest was big. You know, I was thinking, yes, I'm in. I'm going to get it today. meaning luxuries, right? So then I've gone to back to the fourth floor. I looked at a door. There was about three Banham locks on it. A Chinese man taught me a special kick in the early days in Aylesbury, and I practiced it and I mastered it. Sadly, you think about people when you're taking their front doors off and it's sailed down into the corridor. You think how that leaves people. You know, not a nice place for people to go home and see their door flat out in the corridor of their own place. But anyway, I wasn't thinking too much like that those days. Um, I got up the stairs, pressed on the door. The door was alarmed. I was thinking, wow, occasionally I press the door and the bell would just go off. Not this day. Two of the bottom locks were on, one of them wasn't. So, press the lift, thinking I'm being smart, so that the gate lift locks and bangs. So, at the same time that the gate lift shuts and you press the button to call it, it makes a noise when the gate goes bang. So, I thought, being clever and thinking that I was some kind of master criminal, when the gate hits the lift, that's when I decide to kick the door. Bang! As soon as the gate shut, the door came off. I was in. I used to smell the gaffs. I used to smell them because the aftershave, the car ears, the Van Cleef and Arpels. I used to think, yeah, that meant money. Do you see what I mean? So that was my attachment to that, you know? Gone in, found some bits and pieces, sadly. Jewelry, loads and loads and loads. I come out quickly. I'm too panicky, kind of thing, to search for more. I wanted to get out, to be honest. So I got the bag and I'm walking down back past the security porters. So I'm kind of moving a little bit faster now. Got the pouch on my wrist, the Samsonite pouch, which was to make believe that I was kind of like an Arab man, if you get what I mean. Carried on walking, but when I got to the desk, they said, "Excuse me, sir, can I have a quick word?" And all the front door entrances click, locked in. They said, "Sir, could you come this way, please? You've got a thing, blah, blah, blah." So I turned round. I looked at them. This was a different Yami to the one that I knew as a small boy. I went into the camise pocket in like I was going down there, like I was going to go and pull out something. And they all ducked down between the counter, which gave me a little time to run. So I ran to the left. They all started running behind me with their walkie-talkies. Guard dogs came. People came out of their homes. Wow, the fear. But I didn't feel it that day. I felt like I was it, and I wasn't scared of the consequences. But no way was you going to hold me in there that day. So I ran to the left, blocked off, because all the fire exits, the back exits, had alarms on as well. So I came back round again, and there was a crowd. Saudi Arabian people were speaking in their language. I didn't understand a clue what they were saying. So I tried to back out, went into the pocket again to pull it out, and they all froze. Gave me another 5 yard start, but really there was nothing there. It was a con again to give me time to get to the last entrance. So they have a full crowd now. I kick off the fire exit door. I get out. Everybody stands still. I get a black taxi and I'm out of there. You know, when I'm in the car, kind of feeling breathing heavy and that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, that's what it was like. That's what I turned into, an absolute fucking animal. Yeah, hardened criminal, thinking that I'd mastered the art, the transformation from a soft, innocent little boy who didn't used to really talk around a lot of people, you know, as a kid. Now, the skills of prison, the conning, facing people, you know, looking them in the eye, thinking that they think you're telling the truth, but really you're having them over. The transference of those skills outside the conning, like I just said to you, had paved the way for my survival in the cates. I didn't know it until recently because you realise that you learn all those skills as you're going along, and this is the message. So you think in your head you're refining the art of the game that you're in, which is, it's not, let's have it. There's no real rewards out of it all, really. You always feel guilty and shame. At least I did as well. It always comes back to haunt you. Well, me again, that's what I'm saying. But it was unbelievable. It was only the other day that the transfer, you realise those skills in that life were developed to a higher level on a bigger stage where you could look people in the eye and act it out. Sometimes you have to get serious, like that day again in Berkeley Street. It's always in my armory during that time, but I always use those acting skills, the make believe of who I am. Terence was talking about it early, raffles, the climbing, and that kind of stuff, the identification, the fascination, the fantasy of finding millions. When really, what was you going to do with it, Sam? What would it have done for you in the long run? You wouldn't have had no plans for it anyway. Sometimes, well, in fact, I do know now that I went on that journey for nothing. But listen to me. Sorry about the crime and going over it. I've been arrested for these things before. They're going to come up in my book anyway, and I'm sending you so much love. Get ready for part 3 for when I was a salesman with a different suit on to try and gain my means of financial success, sadly at the expense of somebody else. All right. So see you soon. Sending love. Hope your Sunday's gone the best it possibly can.